Hello everybody, welcome back. It's been a while since my last Star Wars Black Series video, but I'm back today with a very special release, or at least it's special to me, because this is Prince Xizor from Shadows of the Empire. And anyone who's been a long-time subscriber to my channel will know that I am a bit of a fan of the Shadows of the Empire. I grew up with this, I really bought into it at the time. There was the computer game, the trading cards, the comic books, everything you can think of. And I think the tagline at the time was everything but the movie. So this was really fun because this was essentially the missing chapter in the Star Wars universe at the time, and it was really fun to delve in. And one of the main characters, one of the new creations that came out of that was, of course, Prince Xizor. So this character's long held a special place in my heart, and I'm delighted to finally have him in a 6-inch action figure form. So let's dive straight in and take a look at the packaging. Now, at first glance, you could be forgiven for thinking this is the standard Black Series packaging we've come to know and accept over the last few years. It's mostly black borders. There's not an awful lot of decoration, a lot going on here. We do have a nice window display and there's some nice use of purple on this figure, which is really cool and makes it pop a little bit more. But there is one other key difference, and that is that this is now being produced in a thicker card box packaging, meaning it no longer has that slight slanted edge that we used to see. It is now a straight oblong, I suppose, and the card is much thicker. It feels a lot more robust, which is, I think, definitely a good thing. So if we do flip it and look at the side panel, we can see this fantastic artwork here. This is still pretty much in keeping with what we used to get, but we can see that this is now a flat, straight edge, and for me, I actually way prefer this. It makes it easier to display, and it means that you can stack these up more comfortably on your shelf, and this is just going to stack more neatly. And then if we look at the reverse of the packaging, again, pretty much the standard template we've been used to across the last few years, but we have an enlarged image that we see on the side panel. We have a little bit of bio about the character, but again, the key thing here is just the card material being used is just a lot thicker. It feels more robust, and it feels slightly larger, although I'm not sure that actually is the case. Needless to say, it's not particularly attractive from the back. There's a lot of small print here, but I still think this looks really good from the side, and it looks fairly displayable from the front. So I have to say, first impressions, this figure does not disappoint, and I had a lot of expectation weighted on this guy. If we start off by taking a look at the head sculpt, I think they've done a really nice job here. Of course, this is brand new and unique, and I think virtually every part of this figure is, which is great. A lot of new molding and parts gone into this figure, which is fantastic, and the quality is there, and it's backed up by some of the paint apps we see as well. And we can see this in the face, so we can see there's a bit of a black wash running over the green there, particularly on the top of the head and towards the sides of the face there, just giving him a lot more character and depth, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And I think he looks an absolute treat. And whilst it's difficult to judge and say, well, this is a fantastic likeness, we don't really have much visual representation of Xizor, except from the comic books and some paintings and trading cards that we saw. But I think they've done a pretty nice job of capturing what I think of as the character here. I couldn't fault it. I'm really impressed with the amount of love and care that's gone into this figure. As I said, this is basically a brand new mold, so virtually all of these pieces are brand new and unique to this character. And there's a heck of a lot of detail in this sculpt, which is absolutely fantastic. If we start off by looking at the shoulder pads, this is a separate piece. This is like a rubber piece, immediately adding a different texture and tone to the figure, which is great. This is nicely painted between the gold and the purple, which looks really cool. We then have the central hard plastic torso. Now, there's not a lot in the way of paint apps here except for the very striking gold paint down the center of the chest there, which looks absolutely fantastic. But we can see a lot of fine detailing, almost like a jigsaw puzzle approach to his tunic, which is great. It's just a lot of detail here, which looks fantastic. Now, sadly, there isn't any paint wash running over this, which would have made all the difference. If we just had a bit of a wash there, that would have really brought out that detail, and it would have looked absolutely fantastic, as just an extra level of shading would have given it a bit more depth and texture. But even as it is, it still looks really cool. I really like this belt too. Again, a lot of detail in that, very nicely painted and very smoothly applied, I have to say. And then, of course, he has this soft plastic skirt as well. And as you can see, there's actually a number of layers to this, so this does lift up, and we can see that even his legs and his boots are sculpted differently with a more bandage effect, which is absolutely fantastic. But the skirt itself continues some of the detail that we see, but of course, it's even more complex because it has to create the illusion of being folded and looking like cloth, so it actually overlaps itself. And I think this is really well done And there's some nice paint apps here in terms of the gold paint that's been applied as well. This is very neat and it just looks very striking. And likewise, we can see that underneath the skirt there's actually a purple on the top of the leg and, as I said, a bit of a beige around the sort of bandage footing that he has there. But that's not all, because if we look at the reverse of the figure, we can see he actually has an exposed back there, so we can see the spinal ridges, which look really cool. And there's actually a little bit of a wash running through this as well to really enhance that. Now, it's very subtle, but it is there, and it makes all the difference, and it makes this figure come alive and just really pop for me. And if we take a look at the arms, we can see there's extra layers of detail here as well. So, of course, on the top of the palm of the hand there, we can see that has been neatly sculpted in. Again, very finely painted with that gold paint, which looks fantastic. The hands themselves are really cool, very nicely sculpted, obviously unique to this character. Long fingernails there, which look great. And then we have this bracelet, for lack of a better description, around his upper arm there as well, which is really nicely sculpted and looks fantastic. And, of course, off this comes two cotton strips, which has just added an extra layer of texture here, which is fantastic. And of course, these are free flowing, but it just looks absolutely brilliant. I think they've done just a fantastic job with this. So let's move on to the articulation. He's got one point at the very top of the neck and one at the bottom of the neck, meaning he can rotate his head all the way around and he can lean it a really healthy distance left and right. Now, he can't lean it forward so much, but he can just about lean his head back a fairly decent distance. There's also articulation in both the hair points as well, so they will swish from side to side, which is quite cool. He's got ball joints in the shoulders, so of course they will lift up and out. Sadly, he does just have a single pin swivel at the elbow there, so that arm will rotate all the way around and it will hinge to about 90 degrees. Again, he's got a pin swivel when it comes to the wrist, so that hand will rotate all the way around and it will hinge forwards and backwards as well. He does have a ball joint at the bottom of the waist there, so he can lean from left to right a really good distance, and he can rotate all the way around, which is pretty healthy. So this looks really nice. Likewise, he can bend forwards and backwards a little bit, but you'd think you get more out of this than you actually can. He does have ball joints in the hips. The legs will kick out to the side despite that plastic skirt, but this is going to be a little bit challenging for you if you want to get extreme poses. Likewise, he can bend the leg forwards, but it is kind of difficult to get it back, really. You're going to have to fight that plastic, so it's just something to be aware of. Now, he does have a single hinge at the knee. There is a swivel there as well, so that lower leg will rotate all the way around, and we actually have a straight cut at the top of the boot there as well, so that lower leg will swivel from side to side. Before finally we have the ankle pivot, so the foot will hinge forwards and backwards and rock from side to side. In terms of accessories, he's actually pretty light. He just has his staff, although to be fair, I don't know what else I would really expect this character to come with, so this looks pretty cool to me, and I think they've done a decent job. As ever, it would be nice to have a few more paint apps, so, a bit of a wash running through this, but what we have here works perfectly well. And I'm pleased to report he has no issues gripping this. In fact, his grip is really malleable. I'm really pleased to say that. There's actually almost like a soft rubber to his hands. And I don't want to confuse anyone and say that it is made of rubber. It's not. It is a plastic, but it's very flexible and it's very agreeable. So it will neatly grip onto this staff wherever you want him to. And it will remain tightly fixed in his grip as well, which is just brilliant stuff. So, final thoughts. Well, as I said at the top of the video, I had a lot of expectation on this figure, and very often when you have high expectations, you're going to be disappointed, but that is not the case here. I'm really, really overjoyed with this figure. I'm so happy I'm going to give him the full 5 stars, because honestly, I don't know how you'd improve this. This, for me, is pretty much exactly what I would have dreamed of. I think they've done a fantastic job. I love the sheer attention to detail on this figure. I love that a lot of this is unique, which is brilliant. I think the paint apps that we do have are really good and very strong and very neatly applied. I think the sculpting is brilliant, and there's an absolute fantastic array of different materials used on this figure, which just gives it a lot more depth and texture, and I love that on my figures, and I think they've just done a really brilliant job. And all without compromising the articulation, and that is so often the challenge with figures with increased detail. But credit where credit is due, Hasbro have raised the bar with this release. I could not be happier with it, and in fact, it makes me really want them to release a Dash Rendar next, because that's another one that's on my wish list, and they do such a good job with him as they've done here. I'll be very, very happy. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving the video a like. That kind of thing really does help the channel out, and it allows me to keep making more content. And if you're interested in seeing more content, remember to hit subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos coming soon.